Yeah, that's right. I'm sporting a Savannah Bananas t-shirt when I interview head coach Matt Rhule. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. Coach Rhule talks about Nebraska making a college football playoff push, what he expects from Dylan Raiola, Dana Holgorsen, dominating on special teams, how the defense can improve, and what to expect when the black shirts take the field. Don't go anywhere. Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, CarrikerChronicles.com. All right, before I bring on our special guest of today, if you're like me and you're excited about some of the improvements that have been made for Nebraska football heading into this season, which as we record this right here, right now, is 1 week from today, then smash that like button. Also, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It helps us out. Also, you won't miss any of the unique content like this we're putting out throughout the season. All right, at this time, I'd like to bring on our special guest, Nebraska football coach and podcaster, Matt Rhule. How you doing, Coach?
What's up, Adam? How are you, brother?
Life is great. And I was going to hit you right out the gate with a hard-hitting question about the Savannah Bananas, but there's some rumor and innuendo out there. Coach, we got to put the rumors to bed. So the rumor is this. I've heard that you've come around on TikTok and you've changed your stance. So I got to know, what is your current stance on TikTok?
You know, it's probably the same. You know, I think, if you really go back and listen to what I said, I just said, as long as our guys kind of know their plays and are in shape and getting strong, whatever they do in the free time, so be it. But I was like, hey, don't do it in the facility. Don't do it in the locker room. Like, make this place a sacred place. As you know, like, you worked your whole life. You worked your whole life to earn your way into a locker room. And so I can't stand when I see, TikToks coming out of people's locker rooms and areas that are, supposed to be for them. So, but you know what? I've got 10 and 12-year-old daughters, and there's no way I can sit here and say no TikTok. I mean, they love watching Emmett Johnson. They love watching Harper Murray. They love watching the Savannah Bananas. So, yeah, I've probably mellowed a little bit to your point, but as long as, man, if you don't know your plays, I don't want to see you dancing on TikTok. If you know your plays, I guess maybe I've come around a little bit.
It's funny how that works out. If you know what to do, things become a little bit more acceptable at times. All right, let's talk a little bit of football, shall we? Now, the infamous Matt Rhule year 3 jump. All right, it's been talked about a lot this offseason. You've even said, and I quote, "It's going to happen," end quote. With an interview with CBS Sports a couple of weeks ago, you talked about making a potential college football playoff push. That's exciting stuff, all right, as we head into the college football season and start Nebraska's season. My question is, what gives you the confidence heading into the season for things like that? And what would a year 3 jump look like in your mind?
Well, I just think, why else would you do all that we're doing if you don't say, hey, we want to go to the college football playoff? I mean, we'd like to be better than we were last year. Otherwise, what do we do all this work for? So, we think we're going to be better. You go back and even you look at last year, you're a player or two away at UCLA. You're a player or two away at Illinois. You're a player or two away at Iowa. That's nice. Now, that's what losers spend a lot of time talking about how close they were. I'm not saying that, but we're chasing inches, we're chasing edges, and so I want the guys to have high expectations. Now, with high expectations come high standards. With high expectations comes a lot of work, and so talk is cheap. But I just feel like if I'm not standing out front saying, hey guys, we expect to be a really good team, then I'm just taking the safe route. And I don't want to do that. I want to be the guy that has a vision that the players want to follow and they believe in. And I expect it to happen this year. If it doesn't happen this year, I expect it to happen the next year. I mean, we work really hard. The players work really hard. So I think we have a right to say that. To your point, I think that, in our third year, we've always gotten into double-digit wins. We've been able to make the jump from 500 in our second year, roughly around 500, to get into double-digit wins, playing for conference championships. In this league, this is a tough league, man. I mean, You look at the weather, you look at the travel. If you win 9 or 10 games, you're probably gonna have a chance to make the college football playoff. And so we don't want to limit ourselves. We don't want to say it's going to be 9 games. 10. We want to go out there and try to compete and win every single mission they put in front of us. But I like our team, and I like where they're at. So we feel like it's our responsibility to be bold. And why else would I ask the fans to spend their money to come watch us play if we have average expectations? So I'm kind of putting myself out there a little bit, but you know what? That's what I'm here for.
All right, talk to me about your three coordinators, Dana Holgorsen, John Butler, all right, Mike Ekeler. You picked those three guys to be here at Nebraska. What do you want fans to see from your offense, defense, and special teams headed by these three men?
Well, I like to see them see. I like the fans. For me, I think all of us. I want to see a really aggressive style of play. I mean, we've tried to be aggressive on defense. We have, we haven't probably been as aggressive on offense, and that's probably more a mirror to me than anyone else. And so, I hired a guy in Dana who's going to be aggressive. That game last year against Wisconsin, we got the lead and we didn't slow down. We kept attacking and attacking and attacking. You go back to that Iowa game, Iowa obviously has a good defense. We didn't score as many points as we would have liked, but I mean, it's 2nd and 1 in the fourth quarter, and we throw an over route, and unfortunately, the X receiver drops it. But my history, Adam, has always been 2nd and 1, probably run the ball, get the first down, and we're out there and we're taking some shots. We're just playing a different style, and then finally special teams. I mean, we took some chances at times last year. We faked the punt in the bowl game. We did some different things, but I just think when Eck talks about them playing with their hair on fire, that's something those aren't words for him. He really believes that, and so. I want our guys to play with enthusiasm and energy and passion and attack. And so I think those three coordinators all match that and they all believe that.
All right, Dylan Raiola, everyone knows, big-time talent. Holgorsen has said he's one of the smartest quarterbacks he's coached. All right, guys in around that program talk about his work ethic. What are you looking for from Dylan Raiola this year to help Nebraska have the type of season that everyone is looking for and hoping for?
Yeah, I think he's done a lot of it, but now that we get to the games, I think it's about making the plays that are there. I think last year early on he made some unbelievable wow plays, and some plays that maybe weren't always scripted that way. Some plays that maybe you'd say, hey, you probably shouldn't throw the ball back across the middle here, but he made those plays, and that can become kind of that can become intoxicating. That can seduce everybody. And what I've seen is him really buy into Dana's mantra. Dana's mantra is just routine plays. Just make routine plays, guys. Like, let's not go out there and try to reinvent the wheel. Let's not try to be special. Just make routine plays and watch those plays stack up on top of each other. And so I think what you're seeing in Dylan is a guy that understands that, the back foot, off platform, sidearm throw, there's a time and place for it. There's also a time and place to check the ball down to the back. There's also a time to, versus too high, on a play action, he sees cover 2 to check the ball, check it to a run play. And so I think he's finding great joy in the small details that everyone's not going to notice. But I notice it. And so I think if he does that, if he takes what comes his way, I think you'll see the offense take that mentality, that patient mentality of, hey, we're going to attack, but we're going to attack and take what they give us. And we're going to be unbelievably disciplined in terms of our approach. If we do that, the talent, I think, in critical moments will take over.
All right, talk to me about the running back room. Emmett Johnson expected to be the starter, but how do you feel about that room as a whole, and who else has stood out during camp?
It's been one of our best rooms. They're just young, right? I mean, they're just they're young players, and so when they're young, you just got to get them out there and get them playing. So Emmett, obviously, he's tailback number 1. He's had a great camp. I mean, he's doing things at an unbelievably high level for us. Mekhi Nelson, probably one of the fastest guys on the team, most explosive guys on the team. Pennsylvania guy like me, he's got a little that Northeast anger in him. He plays really hard with some violence. I love the way he plays. Yeah. Isaiah Mosey, Isaiah was a guy, obviously we had him at receiver. We moved him to tailback. His dad was a tailback. He's 6'2", 210. He's got that body that is built to be a tailback, we think. I think the thing with Mekhi and Isaiah is they're tremendous carrying the ball. They're tremendous making people miss, catching the ball out of the backfield. It's going to be the protection, right? It's going to be not just the knowing what to do because they're smart guys, but the physicality required, the technique. For you're 200 pounds, you're 210 pounds, you're going against a 250 pound, linebacker at some point, right? Can you hold up? And so they have some work to do in terms of getting into the games, but they played really well. And then Quentin Ives is back. Quentin's done a great job in terms of. He's the bigger back. He's 215, 218. Had a hamstring in the summer, had a hamstring in camp, but he's back now. And so you take those 4 guys, you add in some guys like Connor Booth, Vincent Genatone, who I think can help us in roles until they kind of find their way. And I think it's a room with a lot of talent.
Yeah, there's rumor and innuendo that Genatone might be at fullback at times this fall.
He's taking some reps at fullback. We love to get into that 2-back stuff in short yards. We ended the We ended the Boston College game, two-back YY power, not a lot of trickery there, just kind of knock you off the ball, kick it out, and get the ball up inside. Ramir had a nice, 14-yard run. So that was a great way to end the season. But, yeah, Vincent Genatone, some other guys have worked at fullback. And I also think Vincent, he's really, really fast. He could also be the tailback in that package. So there's still a lot of – you know how it is. I mean, you start the season off, you think guys are going to have certain roles, and you get to game 1, game 2. That's why you play these 3 non-conference games before you go into the season and into the conference season to sort of see who fits what.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsors real quick. DPS Concrete Construction. Again, they are your local concrete and retaining wall experts. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Jason Armstrong does a phenomenal job. He's the owner. If this is the type of work you do, go to dpsconstruction.net. If you need this type of work done, again, dpsconstruction.net. Also, Husker Auto Group, all 2025 Chevy Silverados and GMC Sierras, half-ton, three-quarter-ton, and 1-ton trucks are in stock, up to $11,500 discount off of MSRP. Over 100 trucks available and ready for immediate delivery. See Husker Auto Group, huskerautomotive.com for details. Husker BMW of Lincoln has 2025 model BMW X7s as well. All-wheel drive marquee SUV available for immediate delivery or up to $8,000 off. Husker Auto Group committed to delivering an excellent customer experience, conveniently located North 27th and I-80. All right, Coach, the wide receiver group earlier this offseason mentioned that they might potentially be elite this year. You bring in guys like Dane Key, Isaiah Hunt, you have Ja'Cory Barney coming back. Janiran Bonner earns a single digit. He's a guy that's been talked about his physicality, which I personally freaking love. In your opinion, though, how good can this wide receiver group be this year?
They could be great. I think you can't underestimate. I think you can't underestimate the impact that the guys coming back have had. The Ja'Corys, the Woods, the Janiran. Those guys have played football for us, even though they're young, and they've battled. They've been through the highs and lows of what we've done. And then you bring in someone with the character and talent and pedigree of Dane Key. And Isaiah comes in. Those guys bought in right away. They've done everything right. I think Tequil does a great job coaching the room. Dana, you go back to Dana's career. Dana was he wasn't a quarterback guy. He was a played receiver. He was a receiver coach. And so the detail with which that group is coached and pushed and the effort that they have to play with, I love it. I'm not a receiver coach, and so I need guys coaching those positions who are going to make the guys play, but and know how to get them to play. And we have some guys, Keelan Smith, Quinn Clark, that people haven't really seen yet. That as soon as they get out there and have an opportunity, I'm convinced they're going to make plays. And so I think it's a deep, deep group. Guys who can do a lot of things. You mentioned Wood, Janiran. I mean, if I said to him today, like, hey, I need you to go play Mike, linebacker, he'd just walk out there and he'd play. He doesn't care. He's as tough as they come. He's one of the most deserving people I've ever seen of a single digit. When I think of what a single digit means to me, I think of Wood.
That's awesome. I love hearing that type of stuff. All right, let's talk about the tight end room. This is a room that fascinates me personally as much as any position group or position room on the team. All right, Luke Lindenmeyer, first and foremost, how do you not love and root for a guy like that? Coach Satterfield had a lot of positive things to say about him at his press conference the other day. You look at a guy like Heinrich Haarberg. Guy's just a freaking football player. Carter Nelson, an athlete, all right, who's also grown in the weight room. I'm curious, when it comes to Haarberg, when it comes to Nelson, former quarterback, you put Nelson in at running back, all right, at one point last year because he's so athletic. How are these guys going to be utilized? Is there some wildcat quarterback, running back, trick plays, or just in your typical offensive set? How do you plan on using guys like that?
It's funny when we moved Heinrich there. I always had this vision of him like in a sort of every once in a while like a Taysom Hill type, wildcat role. And Dana and them have not really gravitated a ton towards that. I think they see the value in him as a blocker, a value in Heinrich catching the ball, making explosive plays with his legs, and I think they've just spent more time just trying to train him on the base kind of, hey, this is what he's going to do for us. Carter played receiver last year. He's playing tight end now. I think he can always sort of be a hybrid guy. Heinrich can always sort of be a hybrid guy. Luke is just a baller, man. We threw the ball to him on third down last year in the bowl game. He caught it and he bounced off 2 people, got the first down. And Dana's on. You should hear Dana Holgorsen on the headset. I can sell the audio for millions of dollars, I swear.
Yeah.
But he's screaming. He's going baller. That guy's. He loves Luke. And so you have 3 guys, I think, that can do a lot of things. You add in Eric Ingerson, who to me is going to be a big-time, physical, tough, hard-nosed, blocking Y who can also run and catch. And, he's young. It's going to be his redshirt freshman year. But I think you'll see him finding a role. And we have two guys who walked on here who are really talented guys. Caden Ectornock, who's 250 pounds and is a fast kid from Omaha. And then we have Danny King from up in Minnesota, who's also another guy who can run and play. And so I think, after being in the NFL for so long, not every tight end's a 4-5 guy. Some guys are 4-9 guys and they can block. Some guys are crafty. I think we have a lot of different tools to use. I'm anxious. I'm anxious to see as we get into the game plan, how are we going to use Heinrich? How are we going to use Carter? I think we have a great feel for how we want to use them in a lot of different ways. But I can't wait to see it because I think they can just do so many things from a talent and skill perspective.
A lot of the guys you mentioned, they may play a big, gigantic role, short yardage, goal line, that 3rd and inches, that 4th and goal, coming in, knocking guys off the ball potentially. All right, offensive line. Depending on who starts game one, I know the offensive tackle positions are still being battled out, so to speak, but potentially, depending on who starts, you could have 5 guys who have double-digit or more career starts. Now, Donovan Raiola, the offensive line coach, he said this is the best offensive line he's had going into here at Nebraska. Obviously, had a couple of big additions through the transfer portal this offseason. What makes this offensive line stand out based on what you've seen so far as you head into the season?
Well, they're just big and strong. I mean, they're mobile. Everyone wants you to import an offensive line, but you go out and get a really good high school player. He's probably 270, 280, or if he is over 300, he can't control his body yet. It takes a year, it takes 2 years to develop. And so, obviously I wasn't here the year before when Donnie first took over. But I've had 2 years with him and I've watched him be patient with those guys, demanding yet bringing them along. And so now you have a bunch of guys out there and they've been through a lot. They've been through injuries. Teddy Prohaska's been through injuries, but Turner's been through injuries. But you have a bunch of guys that are 300 to 330 pounds that are, explosive, that are, can bend, that can move, and they play really well together. They all play for each other. And so I think we have, we would consider it in our mind that we have 7 to 8 starters, which in today's college football is amazing. And so, and then we have some really good young players, the guys like Grant Bricks and Preston Tamua and those guys who we signed a year ago that are kind of getting into the rotation now and want to play. I'm really happy with it because we're big, we're strong, we're powerful. And if you have those things with some length, you can protect the quarterback and run the football.
All right, so you mentioned previously this offseason that of the things that keep you up at night, the defensive line is not one of them. You expect them to be one of the best defensive lines around. Young, athletic, relatively new. Okay, what has stood out to you about the defensive line so far?
And I do want to say everything keeps me up at night.
Well, I was going to ask you what does keep you up at night, but go ahead.
Everything keeps me up at night. No, I think for those guys, it's important. Hey, we brought you here for a reason. Ty had a dominant senior year. He had a good junior year. He had an okay sophomore year. It took him some time to develop into that player that he is, and I think that's true for a lot of guys. As you get older, you should play your best football. We're looking at guys, like Cam Lenhart going into his 3rd year. Judy's played a bunch of football, but Riley Van Poppel is going to go into his 2nd year of actually playing, 3rd year on the team. Williams going into his 2nd year. He didn't play very much last year where he was at. You have a lot of guys like that. Keona Davis played some for us last year. He's a starter for us. So I think they're gonna feel their way and they're gonna figure out who they are and what they do well as the year goes on. They're gonna, no one knows better than you once you kind of figure out that, hey, here's that one rush move that, man, I love and I know I can win on it. Here's a great counter. Here's how I'm best playing the double team. As they play, I think every week they're going to learn and grow. But we have great athletes. We're not the biggest defensive line. We're not 330 across the board, but we have explosive players. And so if we play an attacking style, if we move, if we rotate, I think we'll be able to throw waves at people and wear people down and play for 4 quarters and play for multiple games throughout the course of the year. So it'll definitely be a work in progress. Terry's done a great job. Phil Simpson's done a great job with the Jacks. But we're going to have to play a lot of guys and have a lot of depth in order to do what we want to do.
Let's talk about the second level of that defense, from jacks to linebacker, etc. Very athletic. All right, and you've got some guys returning with some experience. You got some youth, a good little mix there. Who has stood out the most to you throughout this offseason on the second level of that defense?
Yeah, I think Desan's had a great offseason. It took him a while, I think, at first to kind of get adjusted to everything. But once he did, he's a son of a coach. He's played a lot of football. He understands that, like, hey, I've got to, whatever's being asked of me, I have to master it. And so I think he's really attacked things. I've really enjoyed being around him and working with him. So I think Deshaun's got a bright future for us. I think when you look at the inside backers, I've been really pleased with Javen. And I know that's 7 years, 4 season-ending injuries, 3. But like last year, he played well, but he didn't even get a chance to practice ever. He just stood 30 yards behind and ran to the ball and ran his keys. And so he's developed into more of a box linebacker by actually getting out there and taking the reps, in 9-on-7 and team run and all that. V9, the fact that the whole team voted for him to wear number 9, I think that speaks enough about who he is, the teammate that he is. Mar, he's played a ton of football and he was kind of a space, conference, whatever that league, I'm not sure whether Conference USA or whatever he was at Georgia Southern, to have a space linebacker. And he's really developed himself into an excellent in the box linebacker as well. So we'll play all 3 of those guys. And then, Jacob Bauer and Dawson Merritt, Michael Booker, they're right there in that next tier and ready to play. And I think you'll see some packages where they get on the field. So I think they've had a good camp, but I think Javen, to me, and Deshaun, they really stand out.
All right, shout out to one more of our sponsors, 626 Auto Service in Lincoln. Check them out at 626autoservice.com. Located at 2405 Peace Street, again in Lincoln, Nebraska. Locally owned for 2 decades. Ask for Dean Phelps, he's the owner, or Eric or Jeff when you go in. Tell them that Adam sent you. They do great work at a very reasonable price. Now, we now have kids that are driving. All right, so first of all, pray for us. But beyond that, it's where my family and I take all of our vehicles to get all of our car and auto work taken care of. Everything from oil change, engine replacement. They also offer loaner vehicles, financing if necessary. Again, 626 Auto Service in Lincoln. Check them out at 626autoservice.com. All right, Coach, the secondary. Now, Nebraska last year was 65th against the pass in the country. You got a lot of guys coming back. Malcolm Hartzog, Zaire Wright, Deshaun Singleton, Marquise Buford. A lot of new guys, a lot of young guys, Andrew Marshall, etc. Okay, what's different and or similar, all right, that you see from the secondary this year as compared to last year?
Yeah, you have a lot of the same guys, and they've made a step. I think last year, unfortunately, Tommy had that foot that just never really would quite heal for him, and he was such a tough competitor. He kept trying to play, and we gave up some big plays early in games. You go back to the Illinois game, the Indiana game, and the USC game. We gave up a touchdown, I think, in the first couple drives, because he's just not able to play, and break on the ball the way he could the year before. And so enter Sierra, and all of a sudden Sierra starts blocking field goals, blocking kicks, intercepting balls, making plays, forcing fumbles. I think he's just a ball player, so you add him, bring in Andrew Marshall, who, he played a game at Idaho, they played Oregon, he played really well, and he was kind of the talk of recruiting, and this place fit him. So you have the experience of guys like Deshaun, of Marquise Buford, of Malcolm Hartzog, even guys like, Donovan Jones, and, even though, he redshirted, played in the bowl game. So they've been around Butler for a year. Now you add in Marshall, obviously Sierra's been here. And I think the biggest thing is just avoiding the big plays. And, it's one thing to be playing man and give up a big play. Like, that's going to happen in football. But, we can't give up the cover 2, down the middle of the field that we gave up last year against Ohio State. We can't give up the quarters post we gave up on Ohio State. We can't give up silly things that, a veteran secondary should never give up. So the communication, I think John's done a great job of streamlining what we do so the guys can dive into it. We're not going to try to fool anybody. We're going to try to out-execute them, outplay them. And so hopefully that will let guys like Deshaun play at an all-time high, because I do believe he'll be one of the best safeties in the Big Ten. Malcolm's made a ton of plays for us. I think he's going to be one of the better players in the Big Ten. And so they just have to get confident, communicate with each other, and then go make plays.
All right, last couple questions for you here, Coach. Special teams, all right. Obviously, protecting certain kicks, you want to improve that area. You want to improve returning kicks. I mean, Ja'Cory Barney said he wants to be the number 1 punt returner in the country as far as statistically speaking, making some big plays. Talk to me about special teams as an overall whole. What's the biggest areas that you want to see improved? What do you feel good about going into the season? And who's going to be our field goal kicker?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because we've had a good battle. The good thing is the battle's been good because they've all competed, right? It's not like, you're not having to say, oh, geez, who's it going to be? I mean, you like what all 3 guys have done. And, I think you go back to last year, obviously, we lost a snapper the year before. We had some struggles in the transition. We played 2 different snappers, right? Tristan gets hurt. We played 2 different kickers. There's just never really much consistency. And I think that led to a lot of our issues. It was just simply the battery. And so, and we go get Kevin Gallick, right? We go get Kyle. We go get Archie. And, we have John, we have Tristan, and we have Aiden. So you have these guys who've been here. You bring in some more guys, and it's like, hey, the best player's going to play. Like, go compete it out. So I think that battery of guys and the stability of having them, I think will help. And then, it's the guys running down and making blocks and making plays. I mean, when Jacory, me, that's not really my style to say, hey, I'm going to lead the country, but like Ek speaks that into existence every day. Ek tells them, I expect us to not give up a yard on punt. I expect us to lead the country on punt return. So, Jacory is kind of saying what he hears every day from Ek. And so they certainly work that way and they practice that way. We have guys bought into it. And when your best players are bought into playing on special teams and you have a great coordinator like Mike, who I think brings it to life and teaches it well, I'm expecting us to do big things. I've always felt like you can win 2 to 3 games a year with special teams play. And, everyone, I know we've had some struggles, and so there's certainly time to dwell on those things. But you go back to Wisconsin last year, right? And you go back to the opening kickoff goes back like 50, 60 yards. We make a bunch of plays on special teams in that game, and all of a sudden you win that game going away. And so it just reinforces for me the importance of, hey, especially in the weather that's here in Lincoln, the wind and all those things, if we can dominate special teams, and when we dominate special teams, then that will lead to more wins, which leads to the question you asked me at the beginning, like what does it take? What will a jump in year 3 look like? I think this is one of the prime areas for us to do that.
All right, Coach, last question I got for you. You got the jump. You got college football playoffs, 6 wins, 11 wins, 9 wins. What would Matt Rhule consider a successful season for Nebraska football this fall?
Yeah, I expect us to come down the stretch fighting to make the college football playoff. When I went to work for the New York Giants years ago, I remember on my interview sitting with Jerry Reese, the general manager, and he's like, while we'd love to win the Super Bowl every year, we understand that that's not how the NFL works. At least historically, that's not how it worked. And his point to me was, we expect to be a team every single year that's coming down the stretch with a chance to make the playoffs and go play for the ring. And that always made sense to me, right? And so, games aren't going to be won in the preseason. They're not won in the offseason. They're not won in the first couple weeks. They weren't won by teams that get better each and every week. And so I really like this team. I didn't always like the team last year. There was a lot of guys that, were just trying to figure out, could they do this? I think as the year went on, beating Wisconsin, now the Iowa loss was devastating, but beating Wisconsin and then going to the bowl game and winning that game, especially after guys had left in the portal, we kind of knew who wanted to be here. I thought it was very cathartic. I thought it was like, hey, you know what? Like these are the people who want to be here. And we had some proof of concept. This is going to work. And so now we got to go make it work. And we have a good team. We're going to play other really good teams. We're not going to surprise anybody. Everyone's going to be ready to play us. And so we'll have to play our best every week. But yeah, I want to go make a run at this thing. I want to be coming down the stretch, and you're going to have to come to Memorial Stadium, not because you're a fan, not because you love the Huskers, but because you want to see what amounts to a playoff game when we're playing in late October and November, heading into December, because that's what this new format should be all about. And if we just get in, Adam, if we just get in, if we play a home game, what an amazing advantage for us. If we go on the road with our fan base, how they'll travel, what an advantage for us. And so we just have to get in and then let all the things that are great about Nebraska take over.
Mike Shanahan told us a million times, I don't care what happens during the first season. All we got to do is get into the second season, the playoffs. So, Coach, I appreciate your time. All right, got a couple questions for the fine folks at home. These are brought to you by Husker Auto Group. Check them out at huskerautomotive.com, also carrikerchronicles.com. Our fan questions are, number 1, will Nebraska have a top 25 offense in the country? Number 2, will Nebraska have a top 25 defense? And number 3, will Nebraska have a top 25 overall special teams unit this year? Coach, I appreciate you taking the time. Can I get you to throw the bones for me, my man?
Let's go, Adam.
All right, go Big Red. Throw the bones.
And hey, just people will probably say, "What was this? This is paint." They painted Memorial Stadium last night or this weekend to get ready for the games. And I went out and I was watching the band. I was trying to support the band. I was sitting there like leaning over, and I went to leave. I thought I was bleeding, but that's Memorial Stadium paint. That's Go Big Red, brother. That's what it is.
It looks like you were dropping elbows on players who got out of line.
If I could.
All right, thanks, Coach. I appreciate your time.